Bliss with Elizabeth show, ready to go live in 3, 2.
When you think selling and buying a home,
when I think real estate, I think list with Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Kline.
Elizabeth Kline. And here is the host of the List with Elizabeth show, Elizabeth Kline.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you for coming back for another episode of the List with Elizabeth show. I am Elizabeth Kline, your host. Happy to have you here with me today. I am in Northern Virginia. I help buyers buy and sellers sell residential real estate. I love what I do. There's always new things coming up in our industry, things to learn, things to understand, things that are changing. And so today we are definitely going to talk about some big changes that have been happening in regards to roofs. But before we get into that, I just want to, again, thank you for coming. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It helps other people find the show. And comment below if you have anything you'd like to reach out to me, talk to me about. Feel free to do so anytime. And 703-829-LIST is where you can reach me. Feel free to send me an email. And if you're not in the Northern Virginia area and you need help buying or selling a home, please reach out. I'm happy to connect you with 2 or 3 professionals in your area that will be of great assistance to you in that capacity. So I'm very excited to jump into our show today. I am bringing back one of my favorite guests, Tim Schafer with Erie Insurance. And hi, Tim. How are you?
Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming on again. I know you're super busy. You have a lot going on, so we really appreciate you jumping in to share your expertise and talk with us today. So, I originally called Tim because I go to a lot of mastermind sessions within my brokerage in regards to what's going on in the industry and things different agents are seeing and things to be aware of. So one of the topics that kept coming up week after week was roofs. When someone's selling a house or buying a house, the condition of the roof, the age of the roof, how insurance companies are now handling that. And it is extremely critical that we go over this because this is a huge changeover that I didn't really have to worry about. Homeowners didn't have to worry about. Home buyers didn't have to worry about 10 years ago. And I'm not exactly sure when this change came about. So I wanted to call in the professional, Tim Schafer, to kind of give us a lowdown of really what's going on. And Tim, if you just want to start by introducing yourself, tell people a little bit about you and your company. Let's just start with that.
Sure. Good morning. Yes, Tim Schafer from Schaefer Insurance. We are also Schaefer DeLauder Insurance. We have 2 offices, one in Germantown, Maryland, Montgomery County, and one in Frederick, Maryland. And we are an independent insurance agency, and we represent several insurance companies, Erie, Travelers, Progressive, and some other non-standard carriers. So yes, so I've been working with Elizabeth for a while and very happy to do so.
Great. Thank you so much. So I want to pull up our first slide here because Tim's going to give us the lowdown and kind of break down what is changing in regards to the roof on the home that you may be selling or buying. And if you may hear something floating around, the 15-year rule, Tim, if you can break this down and just give everyone an idea of what the change is and how you would describe it.
Sure. So the 15-year rule is not an absolute with every insurance company, but it's certainly a good age of the roof to start looking at the condition of it and being concerned about whether you can obtain insurance easily and affordably. So all the different insurance companies are going to have different rules, but they are absolutely zeroing in on the roof condition. And at 15 years, that kind of seems to be where the concern starts to happen, right? So if it's a 3-tab shingle versus an architectural shingle, The 3-tab, they start looking at 10 years. And a 3-tab is more of a flat, cheaper, your basic asbestos shingle. The architectural is more of that 3-dimensional look that sort of has a 2-tone color. It's kind of a richer looking, you can tell it's a better quality. That shingle is going to last longer. I've actually heard that they're starting to do away with the 3-tab because they are just inferior quality. They don't last as long. So if you've got a 3-tab, absolutely, you could have an issue at just over 10 years being a problem for insurance. If it's an architectural, if it's in good condition, and the condition is going to vary based on how your house is located. You've got like a southern exposure with a lot of sun, and you don't have a lot of humidity and moss kind of hitting the roof there, or leaves, a lot of overgrown trees. Larger trees can affect the roof. Those things will matter as well. Lastly, when you get into cedar roofs, I don't know if they're common over there in Northern Virginia as they are in Montgomery County, but a cedar shake roof, most people have always felt historically that, excuse me, that they'll last 40 years. Well, I've learned that that's true in Arizona where it's dry, but in this area, not so much. They may last 20 years. So I actually have an issue with a cedar roof now on a luxury home in Potomac, and we're having all kinds of issues with a 17-year-old cedar shake roof.
So let me just pause for a minute. So to everyone out there, this show really is about, okay, prior to this changeover, as a realtor, I really didn't give so much thought to the age of someone's roof because houses were being sold, houses were being bought, insurance was being placed on the new homes, regardless of if it was 5 years old, 10 years old, 15, 20. I've never had an issue coming up with this. What has changed is that, and Tim, you can kind of explain the background of this change. What has changed is that, let's say, for example, you're a buyer and you're in a very, very competitive marketplace. Let's say you're in Northern Virginia, you're up against 8 to 10 offers on every house you're riding on. And in order to get a house, you're waiving all your contingencies. You're waiving your home inspection. You're waiving your financing contingency. You're waiving your appraisal contingency. These are things that are done all the time in our marketplace. So let's say you're a buyer and you put an offer in on a property. You've waived all your contingencies and the house is yours. Great. So now you're moving from going under contract to settlement. And part of what you're going to do in that time frame is you're going to apply for homeowners insurance. So you go to your homeowners insurance and you say, hey, this is the new house I'm buying. Tim or whoever you're going to is going to now be extremely speculative as of the condition of your roof, the age of your roof, and they may not be able to insure the home. Well, if you can't get insurance, okay, you can't get your loan. If you can't get your loan, you can't get the house. And guess what you waived? You waived your ability to walk away from that contract in case that were to happen. So it is now happening. Okay. So as buyers, you really need to be aware that you potentially are going to need to budget to put a brand new roof on right after ratification, or walk away from a house that you're not able to do that on. And again, Virginia is a non-disclosure state for the most part, as far as condition of roofs or age of roofs or condition or age of anything, really. There's only a handful of disclosures in Virginia, and none of them really the buyers don't care about, most of the ones that are required. So it's a very tricky state. Now Maryland is a little bit different. However, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this issue. It is a new issue. It is also potentially an issue for sellers, whereas if they're going on the market, their roof is fine. They haven't done anything with it maybe for 20 years. Maybe they have a 30-year shingle and they're not worried. And they put their home on the market. The new buyers, if they cannot get insurance, and let's say they didn't waive their contingency, they can walk away. They're probably going to walk away when they find out they can't get insurance or they have to put a brand new roof on. So this matters. This is important. It's important to sellers. It's important to buyers. And Tim, if you can share with us a little bit about the background of why this is now a very a more focused
Sure.
thing for insurance
Sure.
companies, because the story is very interesting. And I think a lot of people out there will be able to relate to it. So, Tim, tell us exactly what happened.
Well, I can tell you this. This is my 42nd year of representing Erie Insurance. I started out actually as a claims adjuster right out of college in 1983. So I handled claims. I learned that side of the business. And then I got into sales as an agent to sell the policy. So I was very well versed in what was covered and what was not covered and how claims were being handled, particularly with roofs. So during that time, it was never that much of an issue. Somebody had hail damage, we paid the claim. Someone had windstorm damage to the roof, we paid the claim. Not a big deal. People use reputable local roofing companies that they got references from friends and family, and all was good. And then all of a sudden, I'd say in the last 20 years, maybe, well, it's just has been mounting. We get these fly-by-night roofers that, yeah, I hate to say, come up from the South or just roam around the country,
Just
and they go
say it
door
how
to
you see
door.
it. Say it how you see it.
They drop off samples on your door in a nice bag of new shingles. They even do it with siding, but the roof was the big draw, and they would advertise that they could get you a new roof for either the cost of your deductible, or they would even sometimes pay for your deductible. So it was very much incentivizing folks to, file a claim, see if there's damage, and really recruit people to look for claims. And I want to be careful to say that if there's damage and it's legitimate and you've had a hailstorm or a windstorm, insurance companies don't mind paying claims. What they mind is when folks don't replace their roofs or gets to the end of the lifespan of their roof, and they just say, I'm going to wait for the next storm. The storm chaser comes along and says, hey, don't worry, we'll just get you a new roof. Then that's when this has been mounting. So I will also say that we have actually had several situations where this roofer goes on the roof to inspect the damage, and they cause damage. They either with a hammer or with wearing cleats, and they will damage the roof to say that it's damaged. File a claim, and we've actually turned a storm damage claim into a vandalism claim. Now we end up still paying the claim and a new roof, but we then collect it back from the insurance company that insures the roofing company. So,
Wow.
so that's the extent of how we've gone from none of that through it just being rampant, where they come in and they want to re-roof the entire neighborhood, and so it has cost the insurance companies a lot of money, because now they have to hire engineers and a separate firm, an independent company, to go out and assess the damage. So it's created a lot more work, a lot more expense to prove or disprove that there is actual hail damage.
And so, that's really the bottom line, right? So people abuse the system, right? They went up on roofs, they caused damage, which created an influx of claims to insurance policies where there shouldn't have been. And now the pressure has mounted, right, on the insurance companies. And now the insurance companies are pushing back with, and you think as a homeowner, hey, if I put a 30-year shingle on or a 50-year shingle, I should be good for 30 or 50 years, but not necessarily the case anymore. And so that's where the warning is coming in for this show. And just be aware, understand, what's happening in the industry so you can be prepared for it. Tim, finish your story about that cedar roof, because I know you had a very specific story you could share about that.
So the background, that was a longtime client, personal friend. We had insured it as a primary residence, meaning they have lived in the home, in Montgomery County, worked and raised a family here. They have recently decided to make Florida their primary residence, right? They they're living in Florida. They got an auto insurance and changed their driver's license to Florida for tax purposes as well. So
Okay.
what that means is that now the insurance company considers that a secondary home.
So they didn't even move.
They didn't
They
move.
They didn't
They
really
changed-
sell the house. They're
Correct.
just okay.
They changed the status of the occupancy. They still live there. They don't even rent it out. Okay. They're not doing Airbnb. They're not doing anything. They simply went from it's no longer our primary residence. And now it has to be changed. The insurance policy has to be changed. And we're forced to re-underwrite that, as we say, for a new policy as a secondary home. And I've been working on this since August to get this coverage through their existing insurance company. And we've had to have cedar roof specialists go out and assess the damage, take photographs, give us proposals for replacing the parts that are damaged, and they want the treatment of the whole roof done. In other words, there's maintenance and preventative stuff. They spray it or whatever to keep moss from building on it or what have you. And this was a cedar roof.
So you're saying that the trigger is either a transfer of ownership or transfer of occupancy.
Correct.
So had they continued to live there and didn't do anything, there'd be no issue.
Correct. And I will also say, longtime client, never have had a claim, not any kind of claim, not a theft claim, not a burglary, not a hailstorm, nothing. There's been no payout. So it's not like they were a high risk. They were a very good risk. And I don't know if I mentioned, the roof is only 18 years old. It was 17, 18 years old.
It's
and
a 50-year
homeowners
roof.
with cedar roofs think, because they're sold a roof saying they're a 40, they'll last you 40 years, right? That was the appeal of cedar roofs. Well, that may be true in Arizona, but like I said, not here in Maryland. And at 17 years old, the roof has enough wear to it. And that's the thing. So it hasn't worn as well as it should have because of our humidity, and especially the one side of the house where it's shaded more of the day than the back of the house. There's trees there. So there is definite damage from wear and tear, but that's not an insurance claim. We don't cover wear and tear. We don't cover a shady roof that has been heavily damaged by moss or moisture or anything else. So, and that's the other thing. A lot of people use their homeowners policies as a maintenance policy, and you just can't do that. So the insurance companies have to figure out if it's sudden and accidental from a storm, or if it's wear and tear, if there's a manufacturer's defect. So all those things come into play.
It really is crazy, because I remember even at our house, when we first bought the house 10 years ago, we had people stopping by all the time. Oh, let me look at your roof. Let me give you an assessment. And I think 3 different people went up on the roof. And the first 2 claimed, first guy I think said we had 5 years left. It's been 10 years now. We've had no issues. You only have 5 years left. You should budget to do something. The second guy came down and was showing us nails or that he pulled out of the roof that were rusted, or I remember it was something. And he was showing us all this stuff like, oh, you have to replace your roof immediately. And then the third guy went up and looked and he said, you're fine for the, you're like, don't do anything. Everything's good for a long time. So, you get all different opinions based on the point of view that they want you to see, right? When they go up and look at your roof. And so this has really created an issue. To me, this is a big issue for sellers and buyers, because it's a big expense. It's something everyone who's buying a house asks me: age of the HVAC and age of the roof. First 2 questions. But little do a lot of people realize, even if it's 30-year shingle, if the roof is 10, 12, 15 years old, you may have to replace it right away, or even before the closing, to get insurance and then be able to have financing.
And just remember, Elizabeth, the reason why they were that way, the 3 contractors, is that they're biased. They want to sell you a new roof. They want to put a new roof on your house. So they're going to look for that in any possible way. They're not there to say, oh yeah, I'll see you in 7 years. So
Right.
that
They're not house consultants. They're roofers who want to sell a new roof. I get it. Yeah. And so they're still out there. I mean, we still get knocks on our door, oh, we just fixed Mary's roof down the street. Do you want me to come look at your roof? So they're still out there. They're still stirring the pot, right? And creating the frenzy and the issue. So let's pull up slide number 2 real quick. So again, this show is just about, hey, if you're going to sell a house, just beware. If you have an older roof, it really truly could not only destroy your sale, but prevent a sale. So you have to remedy that or find buyers that are willing to dish out the extra money for that immediately or prior to the closing. It's just a tricky situation. So, you really do want to take care of your home. If you're a homeowner, do the maintenance, do the repairs that are needed, especially if something is going wrong with your roof. Do you have anything to say about this slide, Tim?
Yeah, I would just say, as a seller, really seriously look at the roof and see if it's something that could be a selling point or a deterrent. So a selling point would be, hey, maybe we should invest in a new roof and factor that into the cost of the home. Because I also want to say that it's now become premium bearing. In other words, in all these years of me being an agent, we've never calculated the premium based on the age and type of roof. So just in the last year, we are now doing that. So you get either a credit or you get an increase. So even though you may fall into the acceptable period for that roof and get insurance, they're going to charge you based on the age of that roof as well. So it's very much a key point. And so if you're a buyer, you should definitely be looking at the age of the roof. And if you're a seller and you want to sell it quickly or get top dollar, the roof may now be a consideration, just like maybe adding a screened-in porch or what have you. It is a bigger issue now.
And if you want to pull up slide 3 for us, so I have some friends that just recently purchased a home in Burke, Virginia, and I mean, I think they settled maybe in November. And they just got a letter from their insurance company that said they have 30 days to put on a new roof. I mean, so it comes very quickly. So you just moved, you just paid moving costs, you just paid down payment, closing costs, all this stuff. You're probably buying new furniture, and now just be aware. This may be the next unexpected thing coming. And a homeowner's, a home warranty policy is not going to cover this. Like if you bought something through your contract where you had a homeowner's warranty, it doesn't cover roofs. For this particular, like this is cash out of pocket. So it's a dilemma. Just be aware. What's the age of the roof? What's the condition of the roof? And it's just something I never had my eye on before because it wasn't a thing.
Right. I also wanted to mention that the reason for this, I want folks to understand that when you file a claim and you have let's say you had a 20-year-old roof and you were going to soon have to replace that yourself. Now you get a brand new roof, 100% is paid for at replacement cost. So in addition to what I've already explained, there is actually a move now, and at least one of my insurance companies has just rolled out actual cash value loss settlement for roofs. So that can either be a mandate or it can be an option for the homeowner to lower their rate or to have the insurance company accept you with an older roof. And that's actually come into play with this cedar shake roof that I mentioned, the story that's only 17 years old. They're actually replacing the shingles, treating the roof, taking a high deductible, and the third thing is they're taking this this ACV, or actual cash value loss settlement. What that means is that they'll pay for the labor and they'll pay for the debris removal at 100%, but they're only going to, if your roof is 20 years old, you're only going to get 40% of the cost of the new shingles. So it's going to be an actual cash value, and they will depreciate that roofing material based on the age of the roof. So that's kind of how this has evolved, and that's never been a case before. That's never been a situation. So
yeah, I mean, that here we are, right? So roofing companies are going to get more business, looks like.
Oh, and about that,
Yeah.
my advice would be, when the person comes door to door and knocks on your door, say, great, thanks for your samples. Thanks for letting me know that there may be hail damage in the neighborhood. I'll call my own roofer. I'll get my own, I'll check, Washington Consumer Checkbook or Consumer Report, what have you, and I'll find a reputable, I'll get some recommendations on my own, and have a good company that is local, that's going to be here, because that's the other problem with the ones that travel through from out of the area. They come through and they re-roof the houses, and then they're gone, right? Because they're not local, they're not reliable, and then you're stuck with a problem where you've got a leaky roof and the roofer's nowhere to be found. So
Right.
that's going to be more so from folks that are not local, not reliable, not folks that are here in the DC metro area.
And let's pull up slide 4. You had also mentioned to me before, Tim, that it will be let's say, for example, I wanted my roof looked at. Instead of even having a roofer do it, ultimately someone from Erie Insurance, I keep calling you Erie Insurance because that's how when I met you was
right. And we still are.
Schaefer Insurance come out and actually assess the roof and look at the roof and put the final word on it. So I think that you just need to be aware that if you have an older roof, and you're going to sell your home or change the status of your home from primary to secondary, like the example Tim gave, it could cause issues that you weren't aware of. But now you're aware because you're watching the show. So that's good.
Absolutely.
And then solutions for homeowners. Really, it just takes some proactive steps to get your roof looked at. And, if it is older, probably budgeting to put on a brand new roof just to prevent issues with your contract is going to be something that we see more and more of. What do you think, Tim?
I agree totally. And I would say, particularly if you are a buyer, you must make sure that if you're having a home inspection done, which I highly recommend, that they zero in on the roof and make that a priority. And that could, again, be a deal breaker. But and I would also say, if it's questionable, then you need to have a roofer do an inspection, a roofing company, a certified roofer, not just a handyman. It's got to be a certified roofer that can assess the life expectancy, the condition, take photographs. That's going to be your best bet. Because I do want to say there is wiggle room, but it's case by case with the home and case by case with the insurance company. So that's why it's so important to know the status of the roof, the condition of the roof, the type of roof that it is, and certainly the age of the roof.
So let's say I'm a buyer and I get a home inspection done, and my particular inspector says, yeah, you probably have 10 years left on the roof. There's nothing urgent you need to do right now. But let's say the age of the roof is 20 years old. That doesn't necessarily mean, like, if he gives the stamp of approval on condition, it doesn't necessarily mean the insurance company isn't going to have a problem with it, right?
Particularly if it's a 3-tab shingle and not, an architectural or certainly a slate or a metal or a better quality roof.
So would buyers want to proactively know who they're going to use for homeowners insurance and maybe
Absolutely.
have someone come look at it?
Say yes.
Prior to their
quotes start with your existing agent. Hopefully you have an agent and somebody that can write for different companies. So an independent agent like us, we have various insurance companies. If you're not an independent agent, you're called captive, which would be your State Farm, and I believe Nationwide is still captive. But yeah, Allstate, you want to just make sure that you start early getting your quotes, inquiring about the roof issue and what the requirements and guidelines are for each insurance company that you're going to.
Yeah, it's really important. Also, does the insurance company particularly do they, I mean, let's say the insurance company says you have to replace your roof. Are they going to dictate anything beyond that as far as like what kind of shingle to replace it with, or do they just want a new roof?
They just want a new roof, and they want proof of a new roof.
Okay.
So it'd be a signed contract, and then we would follow up and get photos of a new roof or verify a new roof. So yes.
Okay. And then it shouldn't be an issue anymore until that home buyer goes to sell or change the status of their home.
Correct.
From like primary to secondary. So
And
then
I
it's
would
really
also say,
to,
because a lot of insurance companies now, the roof is a premium. It affects the premium, right? It's premium bearing. If you know of somebody who has just replaced their roof, they should contact their insurance company, even if they're not buying or selling, and say, hey, I just replaced my roof. Make sure you note that. So you might get some kind of either a discount, or you won't get a rate increase in the future for having an older roof.
well, that's good advice.
Historically, it didn't matter. And so folks would not necessarily call us to say they have a new roof. So we're literally, other parts of our job is to contact our existing clients to find out the age of their roof. So going forward, we can track that as well. So
okay.
It's a big issue.
It's a big issue, but at least everyone's aware now. Tim, is there anything else you want to share with us today? I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think just people being aware of the critical issue of the age and condition of the roof and how it will affect your sale and your insurability of any home. So
great. And obviously there's some information here.
I'm happy to take questions from folks. Feel free to call me or email me. No obligation. I'm happy to do that. So feel free.
Tim is great. He really is fun to talk to. He's a wealth of knowledge. He always picks up his phone or calls you back right away. So definitely jot down his cell phone. Put the info back up there. Write down his cell phone, which is the best one for you, Tim. You got 2 numbers up here.
Let's see. Actually, my cell, I don't even see that. The first one is our office, and you can call or text me with my extension.
Okay.
But my cell phone is 240-418-6149. So yes, feel free to call me.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I thought that said cell.
Yeah, no, not at all. That's
so yeah, feel free to reach out to him. He's been great. Definitely came to my rescue when I had a major leak one day in a condo in a high-rise building, and I flooded like 5 floors. So that was fun. And Tim was right there by my side within hours. So
good.
Thank you again for being on the show. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you have any additional questions on this, or you want to chat some more about it, please feel free to reach out 703-829-LIST to reach me. And if you need someone in your area, please reach out to us as well. And we're happy to connect you with someone wherever you may be. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.